We're going to start with a nice, lovely good evening and welcome to Thursday Night Thoughts. And tonight we're going to be talking about overwhelmed because it is something that I know a lot of us end up having feelings of. And right now, if you kind of see me looking around, I have a couple different screens that I'm just trying to keep an eye on to see how everything is looking. So I apologize if my gaze does dart around a little bit. It's just part of trying to make sure I have everything up and rolling correctly for all of you. So I appreciate any leeway you give me a little bit for looking around. I'm just trying to make sure that I have everything ready for everybody in a correct manner here so I can talk to you about overwhelm and some of the things I usually do to make sure I don't get overwhelmed, or if I am, some of the things that I at least try to do to make sure I'm not being overwhelmed. There isn't a whole lot I really do to make sure of that, in all honesty. Overwhelm does kind of just creep up every so often, so I don't know how to fully prevent being overwhelmed exactly. But in a lot of cases, I do try to make sure I do things to make sure the overwhelm doesn't carry over too far with me. So some of the things I do kind of end up doing to make sure when I am feeling overwhelmed, one of the things I try to do is I try to tackle one of the projects that might be overwhelming me, and I just tackle that and I just focus on that and I try to get that fully to completion. As you can probably see behind me here, I have some boxes of paper and paperwork strewn out all over my floor right at the moment because I had things I had to get done, things that have been neglected for quite a while that just needed to get completed so I could get them all submitted off. So I've been really kind of concentrating on that for the last, definitely last week and a half for sure, almost 2 weeks. Unfortunately, not fully because there was quite a bit to get done. And honestly, it wasn't even as much as I thought. So part of the reason I get overwhelmed is because I procrastinate. And that will actually be another subject that we'll probably tackle as well, as procrastination. So what happens is I sit back and I just let things kind of pile up and I don't deal with them in a timely manner, which really is pretty bad. Nobody should be just letting things kind of pile up the way, but specifically the way I have, because it does take a lot to get through and fix. And then that's where a lot of my overwhelm does come from, is the fact that I just kind of let things slide. And then I have other things come up that need to get done. And I kind of let them slide because they haven't let the other things slide. And I'm getting overwhelmed because I have too many things all of a sudden kind of on the go. So if I'm smart and I can deal with things in a proper manner, I should be able to just take on one thing at a time, see it through to completion, then see the next thing to completion as well after that. So that's kind of where my focus is becoming a little bit more, is just taking on one thing at a time and completing it. I'm trying to not multitask quite as much because I find that even though I can do multitasking, I find that trying to go from one thing to the other, I do have crossover in the information and I do get jumbled up. And I find that I'm not doing my best work when I am trying to multitask. So I really try to avoid as much multitasking as I possibly can. I know my mom will say something about it's because I'm a guy and I can't multitask, but that really has nothing to do with it. I did learn multitasking from my mom and other people as well. So it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm a guy and just can't multitask. It's just because multitasking isn't something that is always the easiest thing to do. If you're doing one or two things, it's usually not too big of a deal, especially if one of them's a little bit more minor and you can switch between the two. But if you have a lot of bigger things, trying to multitask 3 or more gets a lot more complicated and things get jumbled up. And when that starts happening, I do find that I'm starting to get overwhelmed because then I'm starting to get more and more on my plate. And then I'm starting to find that I am not taking care of certain things. I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not taking care of projects. I'm not taking care of my life, basically, in the end. So I try to make sure when I am getting overwhelmed, I just try to figure out what the biggest thing is, take it, deal with it, get it done, and then move on to the next thing. Right now, I kind of have two things on the go that are pretty big. One of them I'm pretty much at completion at this point. I just have a couple small things to finish off, and then I can submit it off, and I'm done with it, and I don't have to worry about it. So that's where I'm concentrating at right at the moment. Then the next one's coming up, which it's going to be it's a very big one because it entails more of my future. So it's a long tail process on that one. So as long as I have stuff that I'm doing to keep it kind of moving forward and propelling it, it's not quite as overwhelming. Just the fact that the dream and idea I have of where I want to be is pretty overwhelming. So I'm breaking it down into smaller steps to get to where I want to be. And that's helping it seem more manageable, because just kind of envisioning the whole picture, it's a lot to take in and a lot to have to do. And I don't feel always the most confident in getting it all done. And I start finding it really overwhelming when I'm looking at the entire big picture of it, because there is a lot to it. And seeing the whole big picture does make it a lot rougher and does put a lot more pressure on you to try and do your best that you can. Breaking it into smaller parts will help just kind of focus on one step at a time. And that one step at a time will help you keep focus on your bigger goals and dreams, and should help prevent it from being overwhelming. One of the other things that I do try to do, and I'm not great at it, and you can ask pretty much anybody that I know, I am not great at scheduling my stuff. I'm not great at organization, and I'm not great at time management. So I don't schedule my stuff very well, and I'm not super organized, hence this disaster paper behind me on the floor. Honestly, it's not as bad. It did look worse yesterday and the day before, so it is actually calmed down quite a bit. So it is starting to look better, and I am starting to get through it, and it is helping. So trying to schedule a few things out. I've redone my schedule for video production and my blog articles as well, so I can kind of keep track of where I'm wanting to be and where I'm supposed to be getting to. I'm going to start fixing up a few of my calendars so I can kind of sync them a lot better as well, so I know where things are and I won't lose track of things, so I can set reminders and stuff better as well through my phone. It's just kind of, it's simple to do and simple not to do. So I'm trying to make sure I'm getting these things taken care of so I can start moving myself forward and making sure I am getting things done and accomplished in a way that I would like to see them get done and accomplished. It is, like I said, it is easy to do and easy not to do. And sometimes I do find keeping my days organized and going are a little more difficult, especially when you're trying to trying to schedule when you aren't relying on a pre-built schedule for you, basically. So it's kind of a newer old skill that I'm trying to reacclimate into my life, is trying to schedule things better, so I'm not feeling as overwhelmed by the end of the day, because now I have a lot more stuff to try and keep up on. So it's something that I'm just trying to do a lot more, is set some reminders, create better schedules, and tackle one project at a time, so that way I can just deal with it and not have to worry about it. And it's just something that I've been trying to do a lot more, is trying to just create those better schedules and better habits for that. So I was also going to talk about some of the things I also do that are bad and do create a lot of these feelings of overwhelm, and some of the things how I try to avoid the overwhelm and not such a great manner. So some of the things I do is obviously procrastination, which isn't always the best thing to be doing. And it's definitely a solution that isn't very good in the long term, because things start piling up and building up. And it's really difficult to start managing projects and assignments and things once things start piling up and building up. So that's one of the bad habits I really have, and one of the things that I do that definitely prevents me from doing my best work, is the fact that I do procrastinate, and pardon me, and I'm not super organized either, to the point where I'm basically just not organized pretty much at all, which is very terrible. I want to be more of an organized person, and I'm started to do more so this week. And I've been taking, just in my house actually, where I just take little bits and pieces, and I just deal with certain parts of my kitchen, because it turned into a bit of a disaster the last 3 weeks. So I've been just picking one spot on the counter and just dealing with it and getting it cleaned up and moving on. And my kitchen space is starting to look a lot better. It's just, I look at the kitchen and I'm like, oh my God, it's such a disaster. I just don't want to deal with it. I'm overwhelmed by the kitchen, overwhelmed by the living room. I'm overwhelmed by the kids' rooms, because I got to go through and try and clean those up. Although the oldest can do his own room, and I'm going to make him do it this weekend because I don't want to touch it. Not that it's really disgusting or anything. It's just he has a lot of Nerf guns, and I just don't want to put them away yet again, so he can deal with that. And then just trying to do more and delegate some more of the stuff out so I'm not feeling quite as overwhelmed either, and just pass a few more things on to him. So that way he can help out a little bit. He's a big kid now. He can help out. And it's just a matter of trying to do a few different things. So a couple things that I do to avoid overwhelm in a not so good aspect and kind of more of a negative way is I not only do I just procrastinate things trying to hope that they just go away, because obviously they do not just go away. I also distract myself. I find little fun distractions that I just want to do instead of doing the actual work that I need to get done. As a great example, Netflix. There's a lot of good shows on Netflix, a lot of good shows on Amazon Prime as well. I find myself, I get kind of sucked into one that I may happen to really be enjoying, and I can't get back out of it. And that's what I do. I watch that show to almost completion, and then I'm like, oh crap, I've done nothing all day long. Right now it's been kind of raining, so I haven't really been taking care of the health aspect quite as much because I haven't been out walking. However, I should be on the exercise bike, which you can see over here. I should be riding that a lot more, and I haven't been because I've been procrastinating it, and it's just looking at it, just kind of sucks, and I just don't want to deal with it because I'd rather be outside riding my bike and walking outdoors and then instead of indoors. So some of the things I do instead of dealing with the important things that lead to my overwhelm is I find small distractions or even big distractions. Like Netflix and Amazon Prime are kind of minor distractions, but they end up being big distractions because they can take up hours of my day. Finding small little things like doing the dishes or even cleaning up, even though it's helped prevent some of the overwhelm, just because it has. So that's kind of a double-edged one there because it's not organized, so it does help add to the overwhelming feeling, but cleaning up takes away from some of that, but it's also a distraction from taking care of the bigger projects. And then just finding other smaller things in the day to just focus my time on instead of focusing on what needs to really be done. And there's always a lot to be done, and trying to parse that out a little bit more does help also. Like I said, I'm not very good at scheduling, and it's not something I've really taken the time to look deeper into. So it's not something I really pay a lot of attention to. So I do need to start paying attention more to scheduling. I need to pay more attention to how I plan out my days. I need to pre-plan my days better than what I have been as well. And I need to focus on what's more important and take care of that so it's not building up and more things aren't building up underneath of it and over top of it and just getting this big ball of mess that just weighs heavily on you. And once you start getting some of this feeling of being overwhelmed kind of pulled away from you, you start feeling better. You'll start having less, at least for me, I'll have less health issues. Like, not that I'm sick or anything, but I can feel stress knots and stuff in my back and neck. And I find that to be really quite painful, and it causes me quite bad headaches a lot of the time as well. And I don't really like the feeling of these headaches because they are pretty bad sometimes, and it just really bugs me on how much they bother me and how my head hurts and how I'm not always feeling good. And I drink quite a bit of water, so I know I'm not being dehydrated, and it just piles up. And the more overwhelmed you're feeling, the more piles of stuff that you have that are causing you to be feeling overwhelmed, the bigger the stress balls will be, and the bigger the stress will end up feeling on you. And it's not fun, like, at all. Like, let's face it, stress and overwhelm are not fun things to be dealing with. So now I'm not like a doctor or a therapist or psychiatrist or anything, so I can't tell you how to deal with your stuff. Really, I can just give you ideas on how I've dealt with mine and what I do to try and make sure I'm getting it taken care of. And what I did tonight with my pile of paperwork over here is I just blocked out a couple of hours and just dealt with it. I went through, I sat down, and I dealt with it. I had another project for my latest episode of Trail Tale, which I procrastinated once again. I blocked out an hour, took care of it right before I had to have it due, even though I should have had it done at the beginning of the week. But I have a specific time I want it done by, that it needs to be coming live. So I just deal with it at that time. And I sat down, I took care of it, and I got through it. And now I just move on to the next project. This one for tonight, I sat down and I took some time and I figured out what I wanted to talk about. And this happened to be the subject I decided upon. And I just, after I got all the trail tail up, I just took me a little bit longer than I was expecting. I blotted out the last 45 minutes to just kind of picture what I wanted to do, figure out how I wanted to set things up where I needed to have them done. And I feel much better about this one because I have kind of it nicely framed up. I have my computer that I wanted to use this all on working correctly. And I got all the little fun animation-y thingies you see coming up. And everything's working a lot better because I've been able to focus on it better because I'm not focusing on all the junk that's on behind me here because I've got majority of it taken care of. I have like 2 things left to really do. And that's just find one piece of information I need for a couple of months, print up a couple things, and boom, I'm finished, which I can do all tomorrow morning. So taking care of all that has alleviated a lot of this feeling of overwhelm and stress on it. And now I can submit it off and be fine. And once I get all the stuff back that I need, I can catch back up on some of the other things I'm a little bit behind on. But now that I'm able to clear the deck and focus more, I'm feeling better. I'm feeling happier. I'm not as bummed out from everything. And I feel it's just a good feeling to get things accomplished like this. Even taking small victories like my kitchen. Like it was a small victory over the last couple of days, just getting spots cleaned up on it. But it helped make me feel better, which helped me tackle this stuff in behind me here as well, which has now added to the good feeling. And now I'm taking care of this a lot better now as well. I got my schedule back up. I've got things that I can put back into my other main schedule for everything else. And just everything's starting to feel a lot better because I've taken on one thing at a time. I've broken things into smaller chunks and I can tackle one piece at a time. And it feels better. I feel better. Although I'm sitting on this silly exercise ball, which I think is also causing to some of the knots in my back because it's helping correct my posture a lot better, which you can probably see I'm sitting up a lot better because I got to keep balance on this silly thing. So if you see me kind of rolling about, that's why, because I've obviously changed things up a bit more. I'm going to try and figure out what I can do more with the background stuff here as well. But Thursday nights, I'm not too worried because I don't have my kids or anything. It's just my dog snoring in the background. But anyway, I'm off topic, and that's one of the things. Like, I feel like I have ADD sometimes, where I just like find a squirrel and off I go to chase that, and I get chasing things, and I kind of go, oh, look, it's shiny, and I wander off to whatever it is, and then I don't come back to what I was working on because either A, most likely I've forgotten about it, or B, I just come back and I have no motivation to deal with it because I've come across something else that has caught my attention. And so, and it's true, like ask almost anybody that knows me again, it's true. I get distracted pretty easily on things. So it's just kind of who I am. And it's a lot of times in the way human nature is as well. I can't do a whole lot about it, but it is kind of the way I am. And I'm working on it to become better. So I'm just trying to find new, better ways that I can just kind of work through what my life has handed me and just work on like one piece at a time until I get it completed and just like make my bigger projects, smaller projects into smaller steps and just go, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, get the paperwork behind me. I had 3 months of things to get done. And I was like, okay, you know what? Let's just break this into 3-month chunks. Instead of looking at it as the whole 12 months, I just broke it down into quarters, was able to plunk through it a lot quicker. And it was easy. Like I could see it like, okay, I just need to get this, I need this, and I need this. And I was able to just get through it a lot faster because I wasn't looking at it as this big, overwhelming project that had to be done. I was literally just looking at it as, we just need to get this quarter done tonight. Just need to get this quarter done the next night, and then the next night. And we got it all through. It's kind of the way I handled my kitchen too. I'm like, okay, around the toaster and coffee maker is a horrible mess. I'm cooking dinner. Let's just deal with this as we're waiting for the rice to finish cooking. And I pulled out the coffee maker, I cleaned up all around it, pulled out the toaster, cleaned up all around it, put it all back. Still waiting on the rice, stirred it up, went to the other part of the counter where the griddle is, took all the pop cans and pop bottles, put them into the recycling, cleaned up all of that, moved all the egg cartons off to somewhere else, took the jars, put them away, fixed up the utensils and everything that were sitting there, and got that part cleaned up. Next day, I went on to the other side of the counter where I've had like stacks of like different kinds of water bottles. Went through, cleaned up all those. washed them all out, filled them back up full of water, put them in the fridge. Took some of my older coffee cups that were just kind of sitting there, cleaned them all up, put them in the dishwasher so they were rinsed. Did that with my blender stuff as well, just kind of sort of putting it all into the dishwasher so it was ready and I could just turn it on when it was full, which it isn't full yet, so I got to still fill up that, clean up the sink a little bit more so there's not as many dishes in it, and just took one piece at a time. And that's kind of, I guess, the best piece of advice I have that I try to follow, not perfectly, but I try to follow it myself, is just taking it one piece at a time until you get through whatever that project is. So if you can pick one part and work through it and pick the next part and just break it into those steps, because obviously you're going to have one that needs to go into the other, then go into the other, then go into the other. And that's what I try to do. I try to break them into smaller chunks that way so I can just get through my different things in my different parts of the day. So I want to say thank you so much right at this moment. I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble on about being overwhelmed, and that hopefully you have come away with some stuff that will hopefully help you get through your overwhelming situations, that you may have picked up a few nuggets here and there that may help in some kind of fashion. If so, you can always hit me up on Twitter like you were seeing flash up onto the screen, or you can find me on Instagram as well. And you can always talk to me, or even on Facebook. It's same stuff. It's just facebook.com/Eldorado, and you'd be able to talk to me there if you have any other questions or anything as well. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning for Morning Coffee with Rob. I hope you all have a great day, and I look forward to talking to you in the morning. All right, everyone, I hope you have a great night, a great evening, great morning, or great afternoon, or wherever you happen to be. All right, everyone, take care. Have a good one. Stay safe and stay healthy.